Earlier today, a St. Louis County judge issued a temporary restraining order blocking an emergency rule by Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey. Now, last month, AG Bailey promulgated an emergency rule to protect children from so-called gender transition procedures. Now, this came after an investigation into a St. Louis pediatric transgender center. Now, in her ruling today, the judge claimed that if the state's AG's regulation were to take effect, patients would be, quote, subjected to immediate and irreparable loss, damage, or injury. Joining me now to discuss this is the Attorney General of Missouri, Andrew Bailey. General, welcome back. So let me get your reaction to the judge's decision today.
Well, it's the first step in a process. Obviously, we feel strongly that this rule is absolutely necessary today to protect Missourians from these fraudulent, deceptive business practices and this left-wing ideology that's masquerading as medicine in the form of gender transition surgeries and chemical procedures. We know that there are 0 FDA approvals for cross-sex hormones and puberty blockers to demonstrate that those pills are safe or effective in treating gender dysphoria. And yet, despite that, the medical community continues to push these drugs on children and patients of all ages. And so we took steps necessary to protect patients. We were the first state in the nation to issue this kind of emergency rule. It's us standing in the gap, leading on this issue and giving our General Assembly time to enact a more comprehensive bill that will protect children and protect patients from these dangerous and experimental procedures.
General, we were having some technical difficulties there, so I don't know if everything came across that I was saying. But this was the result of an investigation based upon a whistleblower into this St. Louis Pediatric Transgender Center. So correct me if I'm wrong, but we've talked about this before, and so my appreciation for what you were doing, or my understanding, you were looking into these allegations. You found that there was activity taking place that was endangering children. The information was not being presented in such a way that the parents could make rational decisions. And so you said, hey, we need to put the pause on this. I'm issuing this rule under the authority that I have until the legislature can address it. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, at the end of the day, our whistleblower and the investigation that has resulted from the whistleblower coming forward has uncovered a shadowy and clandestine network of these pediatric gender transition clinics across the state of Missouri. Planned Parenthood advertises these procedures on their website. And so we know that this assembly line towards castration and mutilation has expedited and increased in frequency and number in the past years. And so we had to step up and do something to protect Missourians. And the science doesn't stop with children. There are, again, 0 FDA approvals or clinical trials for these drugs to prove effective in treating gender dysphoria. And that's true for patients of all ages. And it starts with the kids. I mean, at the end of the day, we want to protect the children, but we think that all patients in Missouri should have information necessary to make rational decisions. How dare anyone tell these children, or any other patient for that matter, that they were born in the wrong body? We know God doesn't make mistakes. And so we're fighting back to make sure people have the information on this. It's really a fight for truth. And the truth of it is, there is no medicine, no science, no expert opinions that support gender transition interventions like the ones being offered at Planned Parenthood or at the other clinics across the state of Missouri.
The judge's decision today, temporarily blocking the implementation of your rule, goes, as I understand it, punted it until May the 15th. So what decision will she make at that point?
Well, we'll have a hearing on the evidence. Look, in paragraph 28 of her order, she specifically said that she was deferring on reviewing the medical evidence and the science until such time as there could be a more thorough hearing. So we're going to have our day in court, and we're going to expose the truth. We're going to put people on record and notify the public through this process that these are dangerous experimental drugs. They're not approved for this kind of procedure, that surgery has irreversible consequences, and that other nations realized this a decade ago and have walked away and curtailed these kinds of dangerous experimental procedures. We're going to shine the light on this faux medicine and expose it for what it is.
General, it sounds like this could actually work in your favor, because you will now have an opportunity here within just a couple of weeks to put all of the facts out there, and they're not able to deny the science. I mean, they're going to deny it, but you're going to lay it out there before them. Will you also get into what you have uncovered thus far in your investigation?
Yeah, that's potentially true. I mean, the investigation is ongoing and has expanded because the clinic that the whistleblower complained of has refused to institute a moratorium. And again, so much of this is a reaction to their blatant refusal to institute a moratorium on the basis that they claim to be the only clinic offering these kinds of procedures in the state of Missouri. Well, clearly, subsequent investigation has revealed that's not true. And so this was a necessary step at this time. But if you look at the end of the emergency rule, there are 6 pages of footnotes that we have provided, all scientific journals, medical journals, and experts opining about how dangerous these procedures are. And so we need to get that evidence out there in the public domain. We want people to understand that these are not approved medical procedures, and that they need to understand that there's long-term health consequences and irreversible consequences when it comes to surgeries.
So General Bailey, as you're fighting on this front to try to expose this and the dangers related to it, Planned Parenthood, and we've seen this in their latest annual report, they are moving fast and furious into expanding their pushing of these cross-sex hormones on minors.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. They stood up pop-up clinics across the state of Missouri in anticipation of this rule because they realized the light of truth was shining into the dark corners of their clandestine network. And so suddenly they had to crank up the volume on their assembly line of castration and mutilation. And so they're advertising it on their website now. They've set up pop-up clinics. They've sued my office to prevent us from just looking into what safeguards they might or might not have in place. Why would they want to hide that from the public? Why wouldn't they want to be transparent? If they were proud of what they were doing, they would be more than willing to come forward and say, look, here's the safety measures we have in place to protect patients. We're not convinced those safety measures exist because we know they don't exist elsewhere. And that's why this rule was necessary. My question is, how are these clinics ever able to obtain malpractice insurance?
Yeah. Wow. General Bailey, I want to thank you again for coming on the program, but thank you for your leadership here. 2 questions very quickly. We're up against the break here, but how can our people pray for you? And at this point, is there anything our listeners and viewers in Missouri can do?
Well, continue to pray for strength and support as we lead this fight. Proud to be leading the nation on this issue. Pray for our Missouri General Assembly. I'm confident a bill will get passed. We're standing in the gap right now, offering leadership on this issue. And I'm proud to see the General Assembly moving in this direction and looking to codify safeguards. And so we need leaders that have the strength to stand up and put a stop to these dangerous procedures and are willing to protect Missourians.
Well, we will do just that. General Bailey, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.